Let's get all this out of the way. Dispatch is dropping October 22nd for PC and PS5. It's not about flying around skyscrapers and punching asteroids in half. It's about sitting at a desk and telling other people to do that while your coffee gets cold and you begin to wish your superpower is the ability to punch people in the balls telepathically. It's what would happen if The Office plus The Boys had a baby, and the baby grew up to manage superheroes with emotional support animals and probation officers. Make sure to subscribe. Hit the thumbs up on this if you like it. Leave a comment. We'll be throwing some titles to people in there in the next couple days. Or also subscribe at my Substack at ACG Review, where I talk about games in depth as well as the technical behind the scenes of video games, video game reviews, and everything else. I would love to have you there. And be aware you should see 1 or 2 more reviews today and in the next 2 days. Dispatch is from Ad Hoc Studio, the phoenix that rose from Telltale's smoldering corpse. And yeah, they've still got the narrative crack magic. Remember The Wolf Among Us, Tales from the Borderlands, same DNA, but this time they've traded grim fairy tales and snarky vault hunters for bureaucratic burnout and existential dread in spandex. You play as Robert Robertson. Yeah, that's his real name. Once the savior of the town in a high-tech mechanical suit, now one defeat later, it leaves the Mecha Man with nothing but smoke and armor and unemployment. So he gets hired and reassigned to the Superhero Dispatch Network, a glorified call center for Cape management. His new job and requisite of him doing it, the ability to get back into the mecha suit, is herding a team of washed-up heroes, or in this case, reformed villains, through a city perpetually on fire and making sure they don't kill anybody in the process. That means it's a game of walking around telling a story, juggling egos, emergencies, and HR complaints while trying to remember whose power actually works indoors. Now, the gameplay, this is Telltale meets strategy with a dating sim layered on top. Basically, the game is split into 3 major sections. The first is your typical Telltale, where you have a story delivered to you, here more in anime fashion, replacing the third-person bump into everything within a local game world and hit the A button to see if it's interactive that we've seen in past games, and more of watching an actual anime as it occurs, or cartoon. Then you have the team-based system. Each day, you're in charge of course, the namesake of the game, dispatching your different superheroes around the game world. Every single character has a list of skills. For example, their mobility, defensive strength, offensive strength, intelligence, charisma, and so on. As crimes open up around the city, you send each one of these heroes to fill these. Sometimes a crime only has 1 hero, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 that you can send. Each crime also has a tag word that matters with it. For example, escorting would most likely be defensive skills that you would need, while talking someone down is, of course, your social skills. Mixing, merging, and understanding who to send where for what success is the name of the game here. And yes, you can fail. You've got the usual narrative branches. You also have conversations and choices and consequences, but layered with the actual strategic system occurring at the same time. The city lights up with crimes, crises, PR disasters, and you're the one assigning who goes and what strengths you send. Every hero who's got those stats also may not get along with somebody else or may love working with somebody else, so you have to balance that. The real brilliance here is that the missions evolve mid-run. An escort gig might spiral into sabotage. A PR cleanup might become a therapy session. You're consistently reevaluating, second-guessing, and swearing at the RNG gods, as each success can possibly turn into a failure. Heroes can get injured, refuse to work together, or as I said, just bail mid-session because their ex showed up. You don't control the superheroes here, really. You manage them, which, as it turns out, is way more stressful than punching bots as Mecha Man. Each time you complete a mission, you then get to see your success rate, and you get to see an overlay of the actual stats you've sent in the form of the heroes on top of the requirements of the mission. And then you have a little ball that bounces around inside of your mission's parameters, and if the ball lands in the areas where they overlap, you win. So for instance, if a cerebral ability was needed for a crime and it was very high, like a 5, and you had a 3, then you would only have that smaller chance to succeed. And as this randomizer bounces around like a pool ball, you hope that it falls within one of those areas. So that's why understanding which hero to send is important. Also, you need to keep track of the special skills that you get to learn and discover from your heroes as you continue to play the game. For example, you might have one who his special is he's not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. It's that he doesn't actually stop fighting after he's hurt twice. He just continues on and doesn't lose stats when he's hurt like the other characters do. The brilliance here is the missions, like I said, evolve mid-run, and all those mixings work together well. But there's also something else that can come up both in the main storyline areas and in the actual missions themselves, and that's hacking. And I have to give him a hats off. The hacking here isn't necessarily complex. It's surprisingly enjoyable, though. Hacking revolves around you moving a digital hack throughout a different security system each time you jump in. When you get to bridge-like nodes, you enter in directional codes to get by them. So it's like up, down, 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 left, something like that. Then that node will open up and you can move through. But complexity increases quite quickly with some of the nodes being used multiple times to open up different bridges and to get through more puzzle-like situations. So you may have to get all the way to the top of a map, activate one of those construction nodes, and then get a key from that location, which you don't memorize, by the way. You have to write down or remember in your own brain. And then you go to a different place, do the same thing. You have to put those codes together to open a key door later on in the game world. It's just a little bit of fun, and it sort of breaks up the monotony. Another area that breaks that up is the security systems that some defenses have. So as you're moving around, sometimes a security system will activate and it'll chase you around the game level. And you can try to get to the end as quickly as possible and possibly just skirt the intruder defender, but you can also lock them behind one of the bridges if you're smart enough to plan around it. Not the most complex, it's just complex enough, and it reminds you somewhat of the overworld map section of the game, and those sections can overlap. So you might be watching a hero do a normal mission, and then they run into a conflict or a crisis, and you can jump in, hack a camera, and help that character through those different crises that they end up encountering. The rest of the game, the cartoon proper, the moving around and experiencing, is all the different areas of an anime mixed into game form. You making choices depending on what characters are doing or saying around you. And you will inevitably see blankety blank remembers this, something we've seen in the Telltale games. And trust me, there are some huge switches in this game later on, so that can definitely make a big difference in who you're playing with, who's on your team, and who hates you. Speaking of hate, if the game didn't look good or didn't look a particular way, people are going to hate it. Dispatch also, though, looks absurdly good. It's this slick fusion of sort of Western comic book style and anime exaggeration, where demon ladies teleport mid-swing and laser-fisted psychos try to punch your trainee through the game world. It flirts with Wolf Among Us comic book style grit, but it adds some polish and kinetic flair. It's a rare game that actually nails stylized but expressive, but overall, it does. It also really has very little of the jank of prior games in this style that we've seen before. While The Expanse definitely nailed it and got closer than we've seen in a long time, I would say, honestly, Dispatch is probably one of the best examples graphically of these kind of games and what they can do. Also, and I would say surprisingly so, just because I've played a lot of these games in the past, performance is rock solid. While in the past titles, some of these have definitely had issues, style over substance, a problem with the Telltale engine itself many times, here that's gone, and even on really low-tier systems, integrated AMD processors, the game can actually run pretty well. But be aware, just because of the way the game is set up, it doesn't have the largest number of graphical changes that you can make to it. When it comes to the audio, and that's going to be the special in this stew, and the voice work is excellent. You've got a half-man, half-bat sex machine that looks like somebody tried to gene splice Gene Simmons with the bat he supposedly ate, a skinnier Razor Ramon with pyromania, a twitchy foul-mouthed thief who can turn invisible but still seems to get caught a lot, a muscle-bound gnome who skipped leg day, teleporting demons, sentient piles of gravel, and more. It really does work when all those characters fit within one another and their voices do the same. And that's also because of the writing. Banter in games like this can feel notoriously forced, unreliable at the very least, in being anything other than a reflection of somebody making a game 4 years ago and thinking that particular slang is going to hold up against the worst supervillain of all time, which is the test of time. This game definitely skirts that most of the times, utilizing writing that keeps it from swinging too far into slang and instead going more towards timelessness in its wording, which is not necessarily basic, just clear. So instead of hearing a bunch of slang, only one or the two characters use it, and it fits their particular characters, which I don't want to talk about for spoilers. Most everybody fits, and there's a good deal of processing on particular characters if they're a monster or some other entity, or when it's not done, that's even more enjoyable because you see somebody who looks a particular way and they don't. And that's sort of rare. Not everybody can look like Mike Tyson and sound like Mike Tyson. So in that way, the voices are excellent regardless. Next up is the soundtrack. This doesn't beg for attention. It sort of lurks in the background, humming tension or different comical tunes until a big scene pops with licensed tracks that makes you go, oh, wait, they got that song? Some really good music in this game. It's not always over the top, and it's not always about delivering a ton of audio. Sometimes it's some environmental sound effects as well, especially in the fight scenes. They're really good. There are 2 or 3 particular scenes in these episodes I played that were just fantastic with their audio. And because that audio plays out in a more anime cartoon fashion and not in the third-person game like a lot of Telltale games where you're controlling the character all the time, they're just able to adjust and really measure everything and master everything out, so it sounds really good. When you were able to, for example, walk around in the expansion, just sit there and listen, you heard the ship groans or something to that effect. There really isn't the time to do it because this game's presentation skews a slightly different style. All that taken into account, how does this come together for fun factor? Got to say this. I can only review the 2 first chapters of this. I can't talk about anything after, but not since The Wolf Among Us have I felt that this format, which so often leans more towards the soft or the more hinging particularly on IPs and doing nothing with them other than reflecting a simple side story, have I really felt that Telltale-like games like this have absolutely dominated a space with not only maturity and an adultness that will remind you quite easily of Invincible or The Boys, but also with a pretty heartfelt story. And while possibly, obviously, not equaling those yet, the mixture of complexity and movements, at least insofar as typical genre standards, as well as the idiosyncrasies of characters being let off the leash of PG-13, and many times possibly trebucheting themselves directly into R in this game, elevates the title and makes it something that you want to experience not just for the story and the characters, but there's synergy between those and more advanced gameplay mechanics. And I gotta say, this one is starting out quite well on its own. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, deep sale, or never touch a rating system. I loved the first 2 chapters of this. Perhaps it's not going to make new fans, but I actually think that of all the titles that are somewhat like this, and I say this as somebody who's played most of them, it fits in that genre, but it's a little bit above and different because of its display format being more like a cartoon, and then having those big action sequences, and then also having the strategy game mixed in there. It's hilarious. It's well acted. It has an enjoyable story, and surprisingly, a couple really impactful choices that I found myself incredibly interested to see how they were going to go. Something I can say isn't mimicked in all the games of this style. So anyway, that's it for me. If you guys want to jump into the Patreon, do so. It absolutely helps the channel. Remember to leave a comment or a like and jump in there, leave some little bits of data. What of these games have you enjoyed? What other ones have you not enjoyed? It doesn't matter. We'll try to give out some titles in this comment section later. I want to say thanks to everybody who's jumped in. As always, you can leap into the Discord. You can check out my Substack at ACG Reviews, or leap into the Patreon. It helps out a channel that doesn't go off to Disney World to check out games, but buys them, reviews them, and puts my money on the line just like yours. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week. Oh, also, keep a heads out for other video game reviews coming today and in the next 2 days.